Hi, my name is Madhav Thapa and I welcome you to my multimedia presentation under the subject of EDSI 168 for assessment task 2 as an journal entry. And my subject for assessment task 1 was transportation for sustainable means and how it could help reduce carbon emission. After 4 weeks of collecting data and reports, I found out that the way we live in the modern society is that we are overexploiting the resources of earth, and even from an individual perspective, if we could change some of our habits, we can bring a drastic change in carbon emission that we live in the world. And we have been overexploiting the resources of the earth, due to which these resources are depleting at a very fast rate, and these resources are being exploited beyond the carrying capacity of earth. The living style has changed such a way that demand for food, water, energy and various other has increased drastically, and this increased demand cannot be carried by the carrying capacity of the earth and is not sustainable. And we are already overexploiting natural fuels, and it has been estimated that the natural fuel reserves can get depleted by 2050. Since living style has a high impact on sustainability, I focused on my mobility as I used my car for my daily commute. And after the data collection, I found out that from my tabulated input through WWF Australia website, I was using 4.3 Earths, and this means that if everyone had a lifestyle compared to that of myself, we would require 4.3 Earths, which means that my living style is not sustainable at all. And for assessment task 2, I was supposed to be making a journal entry, and my topic was carbon emission, as I did that for assessment task 1. And this rapidly increasing greenhouse gas emissions due to the rapid growth of global economy and need of comfortable means of transportation is proving to be a great threat to the environment and the economy of mankind and social development. And recent scientific evidence suggests that climate change has become a crisis. If man-made greenhouse gas emissions are not significantly reduced, the global average temperature will rise to 1.5 degrees in the next 30 years. And industrial levels will have serious consequences for life on the entire planet. And in terms of reducing emissions from the transportation sector, both technology and industry plays a vital role. And the two main obstacles to this issue are the absence of legally binding global agreement and the relatively high cost of clean technologies for vehicles and energy. And the Paris Agreement, which obliges countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, solves the first problem and paves the way for the introduction of environmental taxes and subsidies to modify the relative costs of clean alternatives will solve the second problem. These policy actions, combined with infrastructure investment and clean regulation, could decarbonize the transportation sector, and we could live in a sustainable life. And I personally did the calculation on my carbon footprint, which left me astounding. And after collecting data of my travel throughout the 4 weeks, I realized how much of a difference it can make, even from an individual perspective. My carbon footprint was calculated at 13.1 using the WWF Australia website, which means that I was responsible for emission of 13.1 tons of carbon dioxide. Conclusively, my carbon footprint is very high, and I need to make changes in my lifestyle for sustainability, which led me to choose carbon emission as the issue for my journal entry. And the breakdown of ecological footprint in the categories food, shelter, mobility, goods and services is shown in figure 2. And it can be observed that mobility is really a concern in my living style, as it accounts for 2.3 GHA of my ecological footprint. And as a pre-service teacher, I feel obliged to be aware about the carbon footprint impact that I leave behind and find better alternatives to bring it back to sustainable level. And as I collected some data over the 4 weeks period, I could notice a lot of difference on distance traveled by car, which gradually came low from week 1 until the end of week 4. And my action plan for next 4 weeks will be to generate another data on the distance that I travel through car, public transport and e-bike, and make assessments to see if my carbon footprint can be deemed on a par level. And I made an action plan, and then I collected data, and after the collection of data, I found out that for the first week I traveled 485 kilometer, week 2 459 kilometer, week 3 511 kilometer, and week 4 526 kilometer. And after all the brief process of analyzing the data and creating a sustainable action plan, and then implementing the action plan for 4 weeks and doing a report on that, I noticed that my travel overall has went up after the recordings of initial 4 weeks, which was the result of me being involved in work-related travel. During the initial 4 weeks of action plan into place, I was more organized about my travel and was able to track the correct path as I was choosing the sustainable alternative of travel. That is, I was planning my short distance travel ahead and looking for public bus timings and travel swiftly. And it felt like I was making certain improvements on my personal carbon footprint, but came the second part of the action plan where I was recording the same sort of data, where I faced multiple challenges such as work commitments, house moving, busy schedules, and so on. As I was engaged in more work-related tasks during the later 4 weeks, I was sad about the carbon footprint and also about my budget as the fuel prices were spiking up. And it was leaving a huge impact as carbon emission on the ecological system. And this 8-week journey has taken me on an adventure where I learned what impact an individual could make to the ecosystem. The first 4 weeks were the happy phase where I realized I was helping the ecology in some extent, but the later 4 weeks made me realize that many factors are not in our control while we embark on such a journey. I have definitely learned that if an individual wants to bring upon significant changes, it's possible, but various supporting factors are needed, and more commitment and management will better help to improve the goals set out. And academically, I learned that reducing emission is a cornerstone of any successful sustainability strategy, but establishing a target is only one step in the process, and achieving net zero emissions requires investment, innovation, and commitment. And thank you for watching my presentation.